parent training, and we're being recorded. So welcome to our parent training on reinforcers and prompting. So our agenda tonight is we'll be talking about reinforcement, the types of reinforcement, identifying them, delivering instruction, prompting, and some things to keep in mind at the end when we go through all of this. So the first topic, reinforcement. For reinforcers can be any item, activity, and or social response that increase the chance of behavior occurrence. These can be used to strengthen desired behaviors or to help teach new behaviors and skills. So, and keep in mind that there's no one reinforcer for everyone. Every child, like ourselves, is different and unique, and so are their preferences and effective reinforcers. So one thing that's important to know is that when a behavior is followed by a desirable consequence, that behavior is more likely to be performed in the future or performed more frequently in the future. And then reinforcement should be given as soon after the target behavior occurs to increase its frequency. So if you have a child or know a child that doesn't know how to hang their coat, when you teach them how to do this and you teach them how to hang their coat and you provide them with a favorite toy right after they do that or an edible, they're more likely to be motivated to engage in that behavior and do that more often. And that's what we use reinforcers for. So the types of reinforcers we have are the tangible reinforcers, which include items such as toys, videos, food, and drinks that they enjoy. Attention reinforcers that are given socially or by other people include hugs or high fives, praise, such as good job, and any kind of social attention. And then the token, which you may see sometimes your child getting these tokens in virtual learning from their teachers. So a token is a reinforcer that has no value in and of itself. So they gain their value in their ability to purchase social activity and tangible reinforcers. So it's kind of like our money. It has no value, but only has a value when you're able to exchange it for something that you really want. And that's how we use them in the classroom. And the tokens that we use can be points, stars, or even fake money. We have a lot of students that we give them money while they're working, like Monopoly money. And then after they accumulate so many, they'll exchange it for something that they're working for. As well as you'll see a lot of times teachers are using a token board and they're placing tokens on that board as the child is performing and staying on task or responding correctly. And after they earn X amount of tokens, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 10, they exchange it for an item that they may have chosen before the activity. So you can identify reinforcers by your child. So how do we do that? A simple way is simply asking your child what he or she likes. Talking with others who know your child well. That would be a good option, would be talking to your teachers or your child's teacher. Holding up some reinforcement options and see what the child chooses. So you would have toys laid out or other items that they like to interact with or engage with and see what they're geared towards. And a good way that we often miss sometimes is watching the child to see what he or she does when given free time. So if you see your child gearing towards their iPad and watching a particular video or playing with a particular toy when you're not telling them to do anything, those are good things to observe for. So how do we select reinforcers? So every child is different, as I said before, and has different likes and dislikes. So many children have access to numerous items at home, like the computer, the TV, time with their friends or siblings, favorite toys. And these items that they interact with can be used to reinforce desired behaviors. So when using these items that are readily accessible to your child, consider limiting access to them, as this may increase their motivation to earn them during virtual lessons. So if you see your child really loves watching a video before in the morning before they start their class, you might want to limit the time they play with that item, just so that when they're in their session with the teacher, they're more motivated to work for it. So when they know and they're earning their tokens, or if the teacher gives it to them for every correct response, they'll be more willing to work and earning that item. And then keep in mind, reinforcers may change with different developmental periods. So keep in mind your child's developmental level and rapidly changing interests when selecting reinforcers. And reinforcers change daily, they can change hourly. It just really depends how saturated they are with a particular item that they interact with. And then another way of finding out what can be used as a reinforcer is conducting preference assessments. And there's a link here that you can use to, and it gives you guidelines on how to conduct preference assessments. And in simple terms, it's really exposing your child to several items, laying them out, and then giving them time to interact with each item and seeing which one they're geared to the most.
Okay, so
delivering instructions, yeah.
So the next topic is delivering an instruction. And right now with virtual learning, the way that we're doing that is by having the teacher on the Zoom, and you, the parents or whoever's watching the child, is more like the prompt for the child. So the way that you want to deliver an instruction, which we call SD, is you always want to make sure to get your child's attention. And that can look in very many different ways. That could just be by having them simply do something like you say, hey, touch your nose, and they touch their nose, or just making sure you're standing in front of them or in a way that they have to kind of look at you. You always want to make sure that first you have their attention. You want to tell your child what to do. You don't want to ask a question. We're placing a demand, so you don't want to say, can you pick that up, please? You want to say, pick up the pencil, for example. You don't want to give, because if they say no, you have to respect that answer. So one thing we always want to do is make sure to give an instruction, not in a way of a question. And then we also, if there's no response, we're gonna need prompting, which we'll cover in the next slides, how to have them complete that instruction that we're telling them. And as your child complies, making sure we do give immediate praise, which is, it could be, good job, I love the way you're picking up that pencil. And sometimes you might have to use verbal praise as well as something else, whether it's a toy or they get an edible, just to pair and help increase that compliance. And now we're going to talk about prompting. So for the purpose of virtual learning, we wanted to just talk about 3 levels of prompting, because what we really want to see here is that the teacher is the one that's giving the verbal instruction, and you are mostly just a shadow helping us be the arms that we can't when we were in school to kind of have them complete the instruction. So we would want to do a most to least prompting. And most to least prompting is usually seen in a full physical, which is like hand over hand over the child. Then there's a partial physical, which is you're just kind of guiding by the forearm or the elbow. And then finally would be a gestural, just pointing. So we do not want to do any extra verbal or anything like that. We just want to give the SD the one time. And then these would be the promptings that we would need for anyone that's working with the child to do for us to deliver the instruction. So here's a video so that you can kind of see what that looks like.
Do the puzzle. Good job. Do the puzzle. Awesome. Do the puzzle. Wow, good job. Excellent. Nice job doing the puzzle. Very good.
Okay. And the good thing with starting from most to least is that you're actually helping increase their independence. So we're guiding them, and then we're gonna actually eventually fade so that they can complete things on their own. Yeah, do you mind changing it? It's not letting me.
Okay.
So another example of most to least would be the teacher says clap, not the child doesn't respond, then you would go full physical and have the child clap. The student claps and we reinforce. Nice job clapping your hands, and we would give a reinforcer. So what do these prompts look like? You already saw a video, but this is more the definition. So we would start with full physical, which is hand over hand, to have the child complete the entire task. Then there's partial physical, just like I said, you would be guiding, it's not so hands-on, so you're guiding more through the elbow, forearm, and you're having them complete it through a part of the task. And then there's gestural, which is either pointing or nodding towards the material for them to complete, which is something that we would be using a lot in virtual learning. A lot of times you'll be pointing to the screen when the teacher is giving that instruction. So why do we need to fade? So it's great to teach a skill using the most to least, but we do want to fade because we don't want a child to become prompt dependent and just be expecting, someone to help them give the answer. So what we do is doing most to least, we're fading. So fading prompts is important so that student does not become dependent or need your assistance to complete a task. The goal is for the child to be able to provide a response or complete a task within the natural environment on their own, which is what we call generalization. And one of the strategies that we do use to help decrease the prompting and increase independence is called time delay. So what we want to do is wait. So when you give the SD, instead of right away jumping and doing that full physical, you might want to give a little bit of a delay. It all depends on the child, but we say about 3 to 5 seconds before we actually go in and prompt, because sometimes naturally some kids just take a little longer to register what it is that we're asking of them. So we don't want to by mistake be reinforcing them to always depend on our prompting. So we still do want to use the most to least, but it would be good to just give a little bit of that delay before we actually provide that full physical.
So planned ignoring, the purpose of planned ignoring is to reduce disruptive behaviors by not giving attention to it. So when your child's engaged in minor, small disruptive behaviors, we want to avoid attending to it, particularly not responding to them and giving them that eye contact, because eye contact gives a lot of attention. And then most importantly in virtual learning is follow your teacher's lead. And then like some examples that could be like if your child's tapping on the table either with their fingers or a pencil, you want to ignore the tapping. And then when they do stop, you want to make sure you're praising them for keeping their hands calm, or if they're swaying side to side during the session and you see the teacher's not giving attention to it, you want to do the same. And then when they're sitting with a calm body and they're doing as expected, you want to make sure you're praising and reinforcing those behaviors. And like the slide says, is make sure you follow your teacher's lead. If they're ignoring it, chances are you should probably be doing the same. And then, so some things to keep in mind, besides what it says here is that sometimes your child may pick the same reinforcer multiple times. So you'll see them watching the same YouTube video over and over again, or playing with the same toy in the same way over and over again, or swinging beads in front of them. And if that's what they want, if that's what they're choosing as their reinforcer, as an item that's highly preferred, we need to make sure that we honor it because it's something that they're willing to work for. And then the other thing I didn't put here on this slide is the importance of the immediacy of delivering their reinforcer. So it's important that it's delivered right after they engage in that behavior, because we want to make sure they make that connection, that the reason why they're getting that reinforcer is for the response that they that they engaged in. So for example, in virtual learning, if the teacher says to the child, click on the red ball, and the child clicks on the red ball, you want to make sure you deliver the reinforcer immediately. So if it's a Skittle, you want to deliver that Skittle right after he engages in that behavior. Because what may happen if the teacher gives the instruction, click on the red ball, your child clicks on the red ball, but there's a delay in the reinforcer, and he accidentally maybe clicks on another item while he's waiting for the next instruction, he may inadvertently think he has to click on red ball and another item if you deliver the reinforcer after he does those both responses. So you want to make sure you deliver it right after he does the correct response. So that was it for the presentation. So I guess we can stop the recording.